Welcome to Am I the A-hole?, where OP refuses to allow her husband's ex-wife to move in with her after she loses her job and home. My husband, Matt, 35-year-old male, and his ex-wife, Laura, 33-year-old female, have been divorced for nearly 4 years now. They have a daughter named Sophie, 7F, and they share her custody. 2 years ago, when I, 32-year-old female, started dating my husband, I knew about his past marriage and daughter, and I had no problem with it. My husband and his ex were not quite friends with each other, but they maintained a healthy interaction for their daughter, which I always appreciated. Also, I have never had any problems with my husband's ex-wife on a personal level. We don't actually speak to each other that much, only during Sophie's pickups and drop-offs. Pleasantries only. Laura was working for a company that laid off many of its employees 3 months ago, and she was one of them. She didn't have much savings, so she started struggling just after 1 month of losing her job, and she was not even able to pay her monthly bills. Above all this, her landlords evicted her because she could not pay the apartment rent. For the last month, she has been living with one of her friends. I was completely oblivious to all of this until my husband told me about it recently. My husband was, of course, concerned about his daughter and her present-day living arrangements. He spoke to his ex-wife, who assured him that she was okay, but stressed since she was seeking for a new employment that has so far been elusive. And because of this, my husband was very anxious. My husband suggested to his ex-wife that their daughter came to stay with us until she is settled. I didn't have any problem with that because I always considered Sophie my child, and I was ready to anything to prevent that little girl from being anxious about anything. Last week came the real issue when my husband told me that his ex-wife wanted to move in with us. He told me that his ex-wife didn't have any place to go at that time. Her parents lived outside the state, and her friend could not host her anymore. As my husband put it, the assumption was that she was only going to live with us for a short period, most likely a month or 2 at most, as she would look for employment and make enough money to afford her own place. However, my husband said that we should give our upper portion, which was rented out, to his ex-wife because he didn't want their daughter to keep moving from place to place. The suggestion of my husband left me speechless. This is something I felt very uncomfortable about. Laura is his ex-wife, and although I know there is a child involved, there is no way I was keen on the idea of her staying in our house, especially when there was no timeline set to the request. A month could stretch to 2 or 3 months, and who knows how long after that. It is needless to say that I felt this was going to bring so much pressure in our relationship. I told my husband that I would not be comfortable with his ex-wife moving in with us. He appeared to be somewhat bereaved, but he said that he got the point. I thought that would be an end of it. But a few days down the line, Laura directly texted me thanking me in advance for opening our home to her and her daughter. I was surprised to get such messages from Laura, but I didn't want to argue with her, so I politely said that I understood her feelings, but was not comfortable with her staying in our house. I said that I would help her find cheap apartments or any shelters for families or single women where there was some space available. I even said that we could take care of Sophie until she was provided with the necessary help and got back on her feet, but we could not accommodate her in our house. That bit did not go well with her. Laura called me right away and was really angry. She called me selfish and said that I was not concerned about Sophie's welfare and was also interfering in the co-parenting of her and my husband. She pointed to my jealousy and accused me of being insecure, like I can't cope with the sight of my husband with her. I was soft with my clarification, but she wouldn't listen to that. She hung the call immediately. Well, the situation is very different now. Everything is currently on the edge. My husband says that I am being an AH for being so rigid. I told him that I have my boundaries and that I would not let anyone step over them. Even my husband's mom says that I am an AH for not caring about the welfare of Sophie. I told her that I was not against Sophie moving in with us, but I didn't want my husband's ex-wife to move in with us, because it is bluntly unreasonable and a weird idea. How can I live under the same roof with my husband's ex-wife? I believe that I did the right thing by setting my boundaries, but all my in-laws' relatives have been painting me as an AH. So, am I the AH? OP is not an AH for setting boundaries. Though Laura is in a tough spot, OP and her husband are not responsible for her. She is being unreasonable and entitled. She should be grateful that OP is offering her to take care of her daughter until she gets a stable job, but she is over-demanding. So she is a jerk, and I would give her 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets 0 out 5. OP's husband is also a little bit an AH for agreeing to take in his ex-wife, so I would give him 0.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to another Am I the AH, where OP refused to lend her vintage car to her entitled cousin. I, 26-year-old female, have always been close to my extended family, but my relationship with my cousin Sarah, 28-year-old female, has always been complicated. We grew up together, spending summers at our grandpa's house, but she has always been jealous of me. In childhood, she was envious because I was the darling of my grandparents and my father's siblings, and the most popular girl in school. And now she is jealous of me because I am more successful in life, and childhood factor is also involved, I think. Whatever. I own a vintage car that I inherited from my grandfather when he passed away. This car is more than just a vehicle to me. It is a memory of him. He was the one who taught me how to drive, and we spent countless hours working on the car together in his garage. After his death, I have kept the car in pristine condition, only taking it out for special occasions like family anniversaries or significant milestones. It's not just a car, it's a deeply sentimental gift from my grandfather that I cherish. Last month, Sarah called me and asked if she could use my car as her wedding getaway vehicle. You know, the classic drive-off moment after the ceremony. I hesitated for a second because I knew how important this car was to me. So I told her that I would think about it. When I talked to my boyfriend about the situation, he advised me not to lend it out for such a big event. Weddings can be chaotic, and I wasn't sure I'd trust just anyone to drive it or handle it properly. Plus, there's always the risk of something happening, scratches, dents, or even an accident. The next day, I called my cousin and told her that while I want her wedding to be beautiful, I just couldn't let her use my car. I explained that it was a family heirloom, and I wasn't comfortable with it being used for the wedding, especially since I wouldn't have control over who drives it or how it's handled. I offered to help her find a similar car to rent for the day or assist in any other way I could. Well, Sarah did not take this well. She got quiet on the phone for a minute, and then she exploded, accusing me of being selfish and not caring about her big day. She said I was prioritizing a stupid car over her happiness, and that it was just a material object, not some sacred thing. She even went as far as to say that Grandpa would have wanted me to share it with family, and that I was disrespecting his memory by being so possessive over the car. I didn't know how to respond, so I just reiterated that I couldn't lend it out and hung up. Since then, my cousin has barely spoken to me, and I have not even get invitation to her wedding yet. The following day of my refusal, her mom called me and said that I was being unreasonable and that it is just a car and that family should come first. I told her that it might be just a car to her, but to me, it is not just a car. It is much more than that. My parents are somewhat on my side, but they've also suggested I should reconsider because it's a once-in-a-lifetime event for Sarah. Now, I am a little bit confused about whether I should lend her my car or not. So, am I the AH? OP is not the AH for refusing to lend her vintage car. While it's understandable that Sarah wants a special vehicle for her wedding, OP's car holds deep emotional value to her, and her refusal to lend it to Sarah is justifiable. So, I would give OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Sarah's continuous demand and calling OP an AH for her refusal is not justifiable, especially after OP gave a proper explanation of why she cannot lend her car. So, Sarah entitled and an AH, and I think she deserves around 1 out of 5 on the AH scale. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.